Well, I'll make one more reference, which is there's a commercial which I saw when I woke up this morning, and I've been living it today, which is Roger Sterling says to Don, "My father said this is the world's greatest job, except for one thing, clients." So you see me running out, that's what I've been dealing with. So yeah, I head up a group at OgilvyOne, which is the direct marketing. Well, we don't call it that anymore, but we used to be the people that would send you a letter in the mail. I think our most famous piece of work was from, on behalf of American Express, that not everyone receives this letter. And for many years, I know that was the most successful direct mail campaign or direct marketing campaign in the history of advertising. Because if you think about it, it's a little bit of the Bernie Madoff. Not everybody, right, can give me their money. I won't invest everyone's money. So it's, there's a little bit of what we would now call behavioral science in there, and I'll talk about that. So one of the things I want to do is touch on things that you all are talking about in here that you might be able to learn from the way we use Bloomfire. And by that I mean I'm not a day-to-day user of the platform. So I'll give you the pain that I lived of why we came to use Bloomfire and why it really saved us. I have folks back in the office who have a wish list of, hey, you know, it'd be cool if we could alter color and font and that kind of stuff. But I'm here really to talk more about, after again listening to you, adoption, right? How to generate excitement. In a sense, I'm a marketer here to talk about how we marketed this successfully and wrap it inside of essentially what is a bit of a campaign. So dialogue strategy, you're probably wondering what is that? The very simple way I explain this is that we make brands human. Right? In this day and age, and Mark mentioned that I work in social care. My background is actually in service, not ad agencies. And why did I come to work at an agency? It's because we create beautiful campaigns, right? We create really fun commercials, like Tina Fey swiping her card, right? And her kids are like putting makeup on her face, and I think it's the one where she checks out and she's eating potpourri. Yeah, so like that's us, right? What happens, and we actually did one for British Airways, where every time a British Airways flight goes overhead, there's a billboard, a digital billboard, where it changes from a Samsung billboard to a kid who walks out, points up, and his finger is right below a plane overhead. And it's tied to the GPS in the plane, back to the essentially, you know, ad placement servers. Now the problem with that, and this is what I do, is that I was sitting in a call center where someone called up and said, you know, I saw that, I won't do the accent because it was in, but I was in Newcastle, and they said, this campaign, yeah, that's fantastic, you know, I love it. And I go, oh, well, thank you so much. Yeah, you know, you're that smart about that thing. How come you can't find my bag? Right? So it's the delta. It's the gap between the expectations that people like me set in a campaign and then the reality of the end user, the customer. So that's what dialogue strategy is. It's about how do I help the brand become human and have an actual honest-to-goodness conversation with you. So here we go. Oh, cool! I did the Steve Jobs thing where you tease the next slide. I never able to do that. Okay. So drive conversations to create mutual value to bring the brand promise to life. Right? That's the way we think. In simple, you know, in my simple terms, what do I really do? It's what I just described. Right? To make a brand human. But here, it's the core of the work is the brand. Right? So for you might think in terms of companies. People are like, why are you talking about a brand? But it's about activating the brand with the employee. Right? So I'll talk about American Express a lot. And the one thing I would ask is don't tweet Amex. I don't work for Amex. Amex is my client. So they're a little thingy since they're a regulated bank about how once at a conference, well, I'll tell you what happened. I went back home. I had gotten some press. And about 2 months later, Amex, they're like the government. They eventually picked up on it, right? It's like the IRS. Like if they get you, you're never going to get away. And my CEO called up and said, hey, great job. I don't know, you got in trouble because they picked up that you said something really nice about them. It's like, all right, whatever. Very perverse, but he said, wink, wink, great job. But I would just ask, don't tweet Amex. I won't have a job to go home to. So, but their mission is to be the world's most respected service brand, right? Not credit card company, not charge card company, which is what they really are, not merchant processor, not bank, it's service company. Their job, what they view as their job, is to provide you with a service, whether they're selling to you, whether they're selling to you as an individual, as a small business owner, or as they're clearing your credit card transactions as a merchant processor. And so we'll talk about how we help them do that. So just a little bit more on what my team does, so you can see where it fits in the world of Bloomfire. We're strategists. We have CRM backgrounds, customer service backgrounds, sales backgrounds, design. So the simplicity, right, of Bloomfire really appealed to us, that it's elegant and simple. What we do, I think I've already described that, help brands act and sound human. A lot of that involves activating that amongst employees and within the conversations employees have with their customers. And then why we're different, it's essentially data and creativity. So the creative aspect, as you might imagine, for what I was talking at lunch about PowerPoint slides. And like we live in PowerPoint slides and now Keynote. And you'll see how some of that translates here. So it was really interesting. There was a slide this morning from the city of Austin about insights, right? Having a phase in which you are gathering insights, right, in order to then have, in my mind, information, which then becomes knowledge, that you don't just put a platform out there and have it filled with knowledge. So I actually worked in knowledge management at one point. There was a very wonky, I don't know if anybody still uses it, it was called Knowledge Centered Support, KCS. And it was the consortium of Intel and Microsoft. And the principle was knowledge management is not about someone sitting in the corner of a building cranking out documents. It's about you have service people who are having conversations, and you want to essentially look at what's the most relevant content they're cranking out, skim it off the top like the cream, and then put that somewhere that everyone then uses. And so that is, in essence, I'll take you through the case of where our Bloomfire implementation, that's how we use it. We use it more as a curated ecosystem that connects, or that a curated content hub that connects to a larger ecosystem. And the way that we, whether it be a training, whether it be a sales deck, a one sheet, tips and tricks, we always use this approach of listen first, design next, then we do implementation and optimize. I mean, it's nothing, it's classic, sort of consulting 101. But out of that spins a dialogue strategy. And that listening may be sitting down with end users side by side as they do their jobs and understanding, just shadowing them, understanding how and where they're clicking. The design piece is what tools are they currently using, how can we make them better. We do focus groups. Again, we do side by sides. With salespeople, we may do ride-alongs. We see if they're using an iPad instead of using a desktop. Maybe they never use a desktop. Maybe it's all mobile handheld. And then the optimization, that's really how we are more of a push model with Bloomfire, but we do pull back information and feedback by having salespeople or end users comment on the knowledge sort of nuggets we create, and then that is what sort of moves the optimization wheel. So I won't read you the text. This is a very text-heavy slide. I will actually pull it into, again, the earlier presentation, and I tweeted it because I loved it so much. The early morning speakers, her name is escaping me at the second. Is it Anne from Austin? Carrie, sorry. My apologies to her. That success can no longer be planned or guaranteed, or success can no longer be scripted. Therefore, we need planned improvisation, which requires knowledge. That's this slide. I couldn't believe when she said that, because American Express they are unscripted. So if you call their competitors and you say, I'm interested in a, credit card offer. I saw, commercial during whatever, and I want one of those, pink cards or green cards or whatever it may be. Typically, they have a decision tree. It's a salesperson sitting with a decision tree. They're probably halfway around the world, and they ask you, if this, then this. They're essentially just an extension of the CRM system. Amex threw that out the window about 10 years ago and said, we are going to provide a consultation on every single interaction. There are no scripts in this environment. That means that if you are calling up about, you have a small business, you are a professional services firm, and you're speaking to someone who's brand new at Amex on the phones, Amex expects them to understand how to talk to a pro services person about billable hours, about flying around the world and working on different jobs, and understanding what that means. Now, that's a lot for someone to know, and it's hard to expect them to be able to talk to that, right, without some type of knowledge in front of them. So that's where Bloomfire comes in, right? It is a tool that allows us to push knowledge out at employees at Amex. So while they're unscripted, they have guardrails. They have nuggets of information they can use to have a really intelligent interaction. And so essentially, it's planned improvisation, which is why I thought that was such an amazing quote. So let me tell you a little story about this. This is why I have a job today. I started at Ogilvy in 2008 in a really, really great, sexy named group called Teleweb. And yeah, at first it was the Tele team, and then they added web, sort of like, right. Like CompuServe and AOL got together with AT&T. Yeah. So I was walking through, well, the background is I was hired 2008, beginning of like March. Lehman imploded in October, I guess it was. Yeah. Market tanks. Our department is half of what it was in terms of headcount within 6 months. And I was walking through a call center, I think it was in Fort Lauderdale, with my managing director, who was about 3-4 levels at the point above where I was. And this guy hadn't been out of the office in years, right? He's wearing like these impeccable loafers, which are shiny, like the bottoms are completely smooth. Yeah. So here he is in a call center, and he walks up to somebody and he says, you see that book, right? That's the industry guide. So this teaches you how to teach, he didn't say this much, but this essentially teaches someone how to talk to different verticals, right? So I have a cake shop, I have a nail salon, et cetera, et cetera. So it has these cards that's come out of it that are, keywords. This is what you should say. Here's how they think about their finances. It's a really impressive piece of work. I think it cost $75,000 just to print it. Okay. So he looked at this salesperson and said, we did that because he saw it on the desk. And it's like, oh yeah, it's Ogilvy. Yeah, it's great. I love it. It's so like pretty and cool. And I, standing in back of him, and because I can't help myself, and I didn't really like him, I said, let me ask you a question. How often do you use that? He said, no, I don't use it. It's too like clunky. I can't, on the phone. I think my manager used it once when he had like this 2-hour phone call with a computer company. So great content, difficult to access, and essentially very expensive to print. And then the kicker was our clients called us up and said, hey, could you send us a PDF of that? And somebody had at Ogilvy. They sent them the PDF, which was flying around, right, our client. So then I got a call when I started, and they said, hey, we have the PDF of that. Could you update it? Because we want to give it to, and they named basically our chief competitor. We want to give it to them and have them use it because we think it's so good. Like, this is ridiculous. And I said, we need to this is 2008. This isn't 1978. We need to digitize this. We need to understand what's working, what's not working, allow people to give feedback on it, and also update it in real time, so we're not charging $75,000 for paper. And so that became an online hub, which now is Bloomfire, which here is our loving example, which looks like a lot of the other, and that's kind of the point, isn't it? That this is drop dead simple. Now I'll give you some additional background. Bloomfire was not the original solution. We originally went with a product that was a social intranet, right? That had very robust, what I would think of as, there were features there that were robust, but no one would ever use, or they scared the hell out of people. So these complex directories of if I tag a person as an expert in this, and I know we have that within Bloomfire, but these were far deeper and more complex. There was a very robust WYSIWYG editor built in, but it was slow, it was clunky, there were features that no one ever needed, and when I tried to sell in some of those to my clients, it scared the hell out of them. And essentially what we wound up doing was using, this is what's really interesting about this, to me, we wound up using the parts of that platform that are Bloomfire, right? That we didn't use 80% of it, we used this, which is, so I'll give you the use case. Amex hires us to create a commercial, to create an ad campaign, and then there's a moment of truth where someone calls up a call center, or it may be field sales now or face-to-face, and they want to have a conversation about either signing up for that product or using that product more, so a loyalty play. And instead of a book, instead of PowerPoint, I push out to them content that we curate that enables those salespeople to sell more or drive more usage of the product. And we create hubs like this for each team that we work with, and it's essentially what I think of as the water cooler or the office refrigerator or the refrigerator in your home where you post your report card, right? Every morning I come in, I check my Facebook feed, and I look at my team's homepage. And it may be for a salesperson, the sticky stuff is, oh, Bob is the top salesperson this month. I know Bob's cutting corners, but I'm going to beat him. But I see that up front. So it's creating this sense of community. And if you look at is it the promo bar? This is where you can tell I'm not the power user. But when you see the very top with the sort of the banner, that's the expensive real estate for us, where we use that to drive people to apps that we've built that are hosted or live within Bloomfire. And so that's the piece of where we've observed behaviors. We've observed how people are using other tools. And what we've done is we've tied the Bloomfire rollout to other quick wins. So, for example, someone's using an Excel spreadsheet when they're talking to someone, to calculate a value. And I'll take you through a specific example. And we'll say, you know what? You don't need to use a spreadsheet anymore. That's archaic. We can, and these are not technical people, we can webify that for you. We can make it can become an app. And we're going to give you a hub in which the app is going to live. And then, oh, cool. So that's what this then becomes. We will leverage an existing behavior and just drop it in here so that, it's that thing that you're using every day, and you're using Bloomfire, so it's driving traffic essentially into the site. I know we were talking before about requiring people to read certain things, so you can see we're using it for compliance bulletins. And now we're not tracking, we're not doing any kind of survey at the end. It probably would be done in our situation. It would be done with a team lead or a manager walking around and just saying, hey, did you read that? But this is the way we're distributing it. We're not putting it on paper, we're not pinning it up everywhere. So that's the Bloomfire power. The benefits of this for us are, rather than, we have, essentially for us, we know everything that we've cranked out, right? We are able to, we have that for retention purposes or document retention purposes, because we are dealing in financial services and banking. Another interesting thing with our use case, our clients are marketers who are working with a sales team. And so by that I mean I have a marketing department that is gold on conversion, so they have to increase sales by X%. They're working with a sales team, so those people are in New York. They're working with a sales team in maybe Phoenix, that's in a call center, or running around. So it's distributed. And the people in New York have never worked with salespeople before, or much less a call center, so it terrifies them. What this does is it gives that marketer a way to create essentially a listening post, right, and a content hub in that sales organization. So instead of, if you think a lot of times the way service and marketing interact, or sales and marketing, it's like, oh, marketing did it again, right? They dropped 15,000 emails last night with this promo that we weren't trained on. That's where this came in, or this comes in all the time. It's a way for marketing to communicate in real time with field sales, with service, about what's happened, how to stay current. And it also gives marketers become heroes, because they're giving, marketing has money, right? The marketers have a budget, so they can essentially provide sales with tools they need to make more money, or servicing to retain more customers, and then in essence go from that sort of adversarial relationship to a more positive one. And then really simple stuff drives success for us. So I can't tell you how, so I know it's hard to see this, but little nuggets, right? One of the challenges we saw was with selling to medical practitioners, like it might be like a Minute Clinic or that sort of thing, and they were being reached out to by Amex and saying, we can help you with get more customers. And click, why? Well, they're not customers, they're patients. It's a medical practice. So tiny little things like that is how we use Bloomfire to basically push nuggets of knowledge, right? Little just pieces of gold that we observe as a best practice through talking to other people, and then essentially cross-pollinate or transplant that knowledge using Bloomfire. So this is where it's a kind of a buzzword right now. Behavioral science comes in. By that I mean, people love when you start a sentence with, well, a lot of people like you. A lot of people like you find that when and it's like, oh, because we want to know what other people like us are doing. We want to feel part of this sort of collective. So with our end users, we will say, other people on your team have found success with this. And that, it's really around, so a lot of it is really around building a messaging strategy and a bit of a campaign around, here's the kind of content that's going to live on this platform, here's how other people have used it or had success with it in the past, and getting that sort of attention or teasing that use case, and that's really what we've seen. And then also, for us, and Trey and I were talking about this, there is a bit of framing this, right? That you have to, you don't just roll this, you don't just launch Bloomfire and say, okay, it's really simple to use, so everyone's going to, I think that can work. What we've seen is that people will then use a platform like this for their own devices. It's that visual of, it's like when you talk about UX, there's the sidewalk, and then there's the beaten down grass where everybody walks. Like, it will become that if you don't frame it up a certain way for people. So again, you can see in our case, we're dealing with an organization, as you might expect. Amex has an ocean of knowledge, or I would call it an ocean of information. They use Salesforce. They have their own internal wiki. They have tons of training decks, and I see the same thing with another one of our clients, IBM, where you can watch a 2-hour tutorial on server X. But it'll teach you all the tech specs of it, but it won't teach you how to talk about that server in a way that is relevant to someone who runs a business, not a technical, right? Not a systems architect. A tool like Bloomfire is to, again, skim the cream off the top, right? Look at the way people are already doing their jobs, what tools they're using, drop that into here, and that's the starting point. And then what happens is we say, we've heard you, if I went back to my earlier slide, we've listened to you as the end user, we've designed something which we think you're really going to love, and now we're going to roll it out. And here is an example of something that I have literally been in training sessions, because when people get hired at in Amex, and there's certain teams at Amex where it sounds a little odd, but the first person they see is an Ogilvy employee. So that's how deeply embedded we are with them. And we use tools within this sort of onboarding and training session. And we don't tell them that they're going to get these tools when they leave, right? We just give them like handouts, and they say, okay, here's a sheet you should use to when you're talking to a customer, right? And so the point here is, we're all familiar with loyalty points, right? I use my card and I get points. I get points to fly, or I get points. Well, we teach salespeople and client managers to, instead of saying points, to quantify it. To say, you can earn 10,000 points if you use your card for all your spend for your small business, and don't leave it there. Since you're a construction company, you could translate those 10,000 points into $1,000 worth of Home Depot cards, which you could use to buy that pneumatic jackhammer you were telling me about. We don't expect someone to be able to do that on the fly. They were using an Excel spreadsheet which had those sorts of examples baked in. We sat by side with them, we watched them, and then I had a bunch of millennials just crank out what we call what was a membership rewards calculator. So that tool lives within a Bloomfire page. And Bloomfire has been awesome about helping us using iframes, make sure it fits and renders properly and is secure. And so that is the kind of thing. I've been in training classes where at the end of the training class, people are told all the stuff that you need. Like, you've got the new hire book, you've got all this stuff, but everything you're going to use every day that everybody else around here kind of uses, it's here. And they have literally said, I can't believe you did this. Like, this is the coolest thing ever. It is that. That's what the verbatims we get about this product. Here's another one, which is speak the customer's language. And again, I know that the sort of the content in here is not as relevant to you because you're not selling cards to people. But the point is that this is Bloomfire is a place through which knowledge and insight lives at your fingertips, and that if you can do your job better, faster, right, you will come back to this, right? And so it's almost, I guess my take on this, from what I'm hearing, is like, how would be successful, how to raise adoption. Listen to your end users. Just like if anybody's familiar with social media, how do I deal with social media? Well, the first thing you do is listen. Get a listening post up, right? So next thing, what do? Well, analyze what they're saying. How mad are they? If they're really mad, well, are they just spamming, slamming you, flaming you, or are they legitimately stuck at the airport and upset? Okay, then that determines how I'm going to respond. Think of your end users like that. Think of them as customers. Think of them as people trying to do their jobs, get home earlier to their kids. What can you put in here? And again, some of you may just have a wide open, sort of not curated, but I would say, based on our experience, having someone just act as a bit of that curator who goes through and makes sure that everything looks proper, renders proper, and understands sort of, if I put up, we were talking about this yesterday at dinner, a video, and I show you how it's searchable, and maybe I run a cool internal contest about who can create the best knowledge piece. It's that kind of gamification, I think, that is better than offering, well, we're going to give away a free whatever for the person who posts the most stuff. It's competing against each other to be the best knowledge, right? To create the best knowledge. So what are the results? Has this worked? Is it just me talking? People who are using Bloomfire at Amex, who are managing relationships, So at Amex they have a portfolio of card members. Those card members are spending 22% more than people who are not. So that's a huge lift, right? And it's in what was just, the name has just changed, but it's called Top Client Group, which is their best customers. It's people that, small businesses that are identified as growers. So that's why this has spread, not like Bloomfire, but like wildfire. There you go. And so this actually I pulled from, I know a case we did together with Bloomfire about how this helped us as an agency. And I know this is similar to Keith. Our model is probably the most similar, where we have private labeled Bloomfire. Why did we pick Bloomfire? The simplicity, the ease of use, the logic, and the fact that I was at lunch with my Amex clients and the previous solution went down as I was discussing how that solution, that previous platform with them over lunch. And it was down one morning and I was just hoping that they didn't I could fix it before they got back to the office. And I went home and said, I need something better. We found Bloomfire, and within a month, I think, we were up and running. It was crazy. And so what has it done? It helps us understand customer needs and pain points, because again, it creates this loop between us. Actually, it's three-way. It's us, our client in New York, and people either in the field or at call centers, in Miami and Salt Lake, and now, in fact, maybe perhaps overseas. We can communicate with all of them in real time. It helps us identify what's working and what's not. So we might have a nugget up there that doesn't work. We may receive feedback on it and pull it down. And internally, the hard benefits, I mentioned the increase in spend, but 30% increase in engagement with the content itself, 75% increase in user satisfaction. That, again, the fact that before, we knew the stuff was good enough that people were using it, but they didn't like the platform itself. This is the one where we actually have that powerful word of mouth with our clients, where they say, give me that. Somebody mentioned that earlier, like, what is that thing you're using? It increased conversion rates, so this is another step, 15% in overall conversion, not just, earlier I was mentioning spend. And then savings, this was, and I'd gladly love to have more clients using Bloomfire, so I would be paying Bloomfire more money, but it saved us, if I extrapolate it out over the next number of years, there's about a 200K savings versus where we were before. Because again, we were using the slice of a product that really it was overkill for us. And so this is the success story at American Express Open. We're currently using the platform with 20 teams, 800 employees. There are 1,200, so the 1,200 platform users altogether. And then this is interesting. One of the things I keep hearing is e-learning. I have a horrific e-learning system attached to Bloomfire with single sign-on. That the problem is Bloomfire makes that thing look bad. I've got to rip that thing out and replace it. There is, though, something interesting here in that Bloomfire, again, is the nugget, it's the cream, it's the curated content. But I have scenarios where someone will go to Bloomfire and read a piece about how to talk to, right? Here's how to talk to, or make an introduction with someone in the service industry, right? Here's some pain points you could bring up just as an icebreaker. Okay, great. But what if I wanted to go through in depth, right, with quizzes and I wanted to put that person wants to go through an actual formal, right? We were saying, I know it's sort of like a certification or for compliance, but there are those scenarios. Bloomfire is a great tip of the spear, the honey, if you will, to sort of get people to engage and then to say, you know what? I am going to spend an hour on my own, of my own free will, and go through this sort of animated, right, more LMS experience. So that's, again, how we're using Bloomfire to actually kind of sweeten the pot and get people to go and learn on their own in a traditional LMS that our client has. So that's my spiel. I didn't talk.